Welcome to the KFiles. Today we are investigating Duchovny's stunts in Nisei. Running like a cheetah. Welcome back to the KFiles. We're here in the lush basement office. As usual, I am your host, Katie.
And I'm your co-host, Kryzzalia. And we're coming at you.
Super Kryz.
Thanks, man.
Super Agent Kryz.
I do want to be a superhero one day, so...
One day?
Well, yeah, like now.
How's tomorrow?
How about now?
Anyway, we're talking about Nisei here on the KFiles. Let's see, where do we even begin? It's planes, trains, and automobiles all over again.
This is true. This was a really good episode, actually.
Yeah, so we're starting out from a very strange place. Mulder buys a alien autopsy off of the internet, as one does.
Off the internet, first of all.
Well, I just love the idea that Mulder's sitting around chat rooms, and these were the early 90s, so he was, on forums, DOS, he was really working hard.
Talk about going with your gut, man.
He was,
literally.
You just see, young Mulder, all the time, just, looking through channels for signs of life. He was all consumed by this, that he managed to find this.
And in case you're wondering, it's only $29.95.
Yeah, plus shipping.
Plus shipping. So...
That's a cute detail that he had to pay shipping for his alien autopsy.
He was very proud of it, too, I think.
Well, I actually don't think that was too much of a throwaway line, because this episode was all about infrastructure, in a very subtle way. We spent a lot of time with trains. David Nutter very carefully directed this episode beautifully and showed us trains a lot.
Might I add, I really like the idea of how they used trains in this episode.
Yeah.
Really, really deceiving. Who knew?
The secret railroad.
Exactly.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. So the infrastructure, so we got railroads, we got the satellite that they beamed that video up to that got pulled off by a now sadly dead MUFON member that then Mulder ordered off the internet from. So we have all this infrastructure. We have trains that they're showing us, and and so it's kind of a great thing where you see the infrastructure is being used for malfeasance, for all these bad things, but it's also used for the truth too. It's used for lies. It's used for the truth.
Yes.
It's used to disseminate the truth. It's, it's not, the secret railroad isn't the whole story.
And talk about the journey of trying to find the truth in this particular episode, how they had to actually separate to discover.
Yeah, they both went on really separate journeys in this two-parter. Yeah, it's a two-part, huge story, and originally it was a Frank Spotnitz story originally, and as they started writing it, Chris Carter really liked the idea of 731 was a real World War II assignation that was really Japanese scientists experimenting on humans. That's real. That also, Paperclip with Victor Klemper, that was real. That was the Germans and the Japanese, and us, Litchfield, and, the atrocities in this episode. If that, that's, who knows how much is real and how much is fiction, because it was all cleaned up.
This is true. It's
But it's worth thinking about, though, that the Germans and the Japanese were doing it, and we're doing it. These were our enemies in World War II, and we appropriated these people and and pursued their work and continued their work in using our infrastructure, using infrastructure that was made on the backs of immigrants, basically. The railroads is, we're talking about infrastructure. The railroads specifically were really bloody. Genesis had a really bloody history is always bloody. That's the truth. But railroads in particular were built by I'm not even going to go into it. It's a whole thing to unpack, but basically immigrants built the railroads, and it was the conditions were terrible. A lot of people died really bad deaths. The railroad tycoons kind of took advantage of a lot of disenfranchised people. So it's this same history of progress at the expense of human cost. And what is that human cost? Scully. Scully is the face of that.
Well, now that you brought up Scully, what about Scully's adventure in
Scully's adventure?
Dude, finding out what her actual where she actually went throughout that one decade of her disappearance, or at least that time span, and then running into all these women who pretty much were just like her, and well, at least who accepted or were in the process of accepting what was happening to them. I really enjoyed that part.
Yeah.
Seeing Scully at a weak point
Yeah.
I want more of that, actually.
Yeah.
Because we see Scully always like a very strong woman. This one
Yeah, she's vulnerable.
stood out, I think.
That's totally her move, is she's fine. She's fine, but underneath, she's not fine. You see when you really get into it, when she's confronted with not just one mirror, but a dozen mirrors that show her something very scary about something real that happened to her, some pain from her past. You're right. You see a whole different color, a whole different flavor.
That is barely like coming back to her, actually. Like,
Yeah.
here and there.
Well, I think we were talking about David Nutter's directing before, and I think he, on the show, captures David and Gillian most beautifully of all the directors. Their faces, he just photographs them so beautifully. You never see their faces quite so elegant. Like Duchovny's distinguished profile is never so striking as when David Nutter photographs him. And Gillian's face, the camera loves her. There's no bad angle for her, but. In this episode, just, all of every emotion that played over her face, I just think he captured really.
Well, yeah, not only like their performances were outstanding.
Always. Well, and Duchovny, his face still moves in the third season. No, his face always moves. He's a great actor. I was just watching a first season of Aquarius is on Netflix, and I hadn't seen it before, and it really reminded me of the depths of Duchovny's acting, because you don't always see all the flavors in Mulder.
Yeah.
Later on in the show, I think maybe he just wasn't
he shows it to you when he wants to,
Yeah, well, Mulder's a different character, too, than Sam Hodiak. Sure. That's the other thing to consider, is that Mulder's a different character. So Duchovny's still playing Mulder, and Hodiak is Hodiak. But yeah, no, so anyway, but what you're saying about Scully, the way that it's photographed really, I think, helps you feel the pain she feels, helps you empathize with her, because you constantly get this perspective from her looking across the room and seeing that room full of sad women, violated women whose bodies are not their own because some men were like, oh, we're going to use you.
Well, yeah, and not only sad, but like kudos to them for actually accepting, like knowing the truth that they're going to, seeing their fate coming at them, like with cancer and what lies ahead, and they're like, well, this is what we're going to get.
They don't really have much recourse. This is our future right here. That is the thing.
How
The human cost of progress is the XFiles episode Nisei is suggesting, is that you ruin a human life. Yes, technology progresses. We have the railroads now because of how things went down, and that's an important part of our infrastructure. We have satellites, like all these things, and the human cost is like a human life. Scully's life has been taken from her in a way. She doesn't even know it yet, but she's been rendered infertile by this, and she's going to get cancer in a year or so. Just like, Betsy Hagopian is the harbinger of cancer to come, and Scully stares into it and kind of gets it, kind of sees, like, this is me. Like, she says it not in so many words. She says...
She doesn't have to say much, I mean.
Well, yeah.
It's right there.
And you gotta love Mulder's response. He's just like, "You're fine, right? You're okay." And she's like,
"Well, we'll see.
You didn't see.
Check with me in a year."
Well, you didn't meet the sad women organization. You didn't see these people who've had their lives taken away from them, and you didn't go to Mulder didn't go to the Hansen's disease facility and meet those poor people.
Dude.
And see the death squads.
Fucking Mulder being a superhero in this episode, like jumping onto a train and freaking fighting and putting himself up and like sealing himself in and saying, I'm going to take this bomb on you guys. I got this.
Like action hero moves. Yeah. No, hero Mulder for sure.
Did he do his stunts in this episode?
He did, yeah. Supposedly, he did all of them.
I have to look that up. I want to know.
Well,
because if he did, respects. I'm just saying.
They did it in pieces. That sequence, the train sequence, took them, I think, like 6 weeks to film. It was a very elaborate sequence. And in the genesis of the episode, it was originally, I think I started to tell you about this, it was a Frank Spotnitz episode, and it was originally just supposed to be one. But as they continued to write it, just became very much evident to one of the co-executive producers who was in charge of logistics, R.W. Goodwin, became really apparent to him that it was unproducible. So Chris Carter said, no, we're going to make it a 2-part episode. We want to keep all the cool stuff. He could see that it was really something special and make it a 2-parter, and we'll push it by a couple of episodes so we have a few more weeks to work on it. And that's how they did it. And it I think, good choice, because it's one of the best, most action-packed 2-parters in all of TV, really. I mean, let's look at all the cool stuff that goes on and all the cool characters that pop up. First of all, Skinner walking out of the fog every once in a while,
Skin Man
like
himself.
noir Skin Man, just sort of like coming out of the fog and like revealing like truths to Mulder and then just going back into the darkness. You got Stephen Williams is Mr. X, who is one of my favorite characters.
The person who never blinks.
No blink, man.
Dude, seriously?
You blink, you're
Not
weak.
once. Just one blink. That's all I wanted.
No, blinking is weakness. Got that guy. You have the first elder talking to Scully at the research facility. I love that character. Sadly, deceased in the big syndicate fire burning of the 6th season, but one of my faves. Like, doesn't have emotions except for every once in a while he's very impatient with CSM. And
Spoiler alert there, guys.
Yeah.
Didn't even know that one myself.
I mean, we haven't even really talked about the red-haired man, the assassin who we meet, who's just in this 2-parter. And there's just so much great stuff to pick apart. Even in Matheson, the Senator Matheson, who I love, that's a great character. He kind of dwindles as the series goes on. I noticed for the first time in his office, he has, on his windowsill, he's got like a little astronomy device and something else. He has like some very specific symbols in his office. So more to come on that. I'm going to do some more digging on that, but I noticed that for the first. That was one of the things I saw watching this that I never noticed before. That's always very fun and surprising to find new treasures in.
I'm so glad
the
this is
X-Files.
happening.
It's only more to uncover in this magical series. There's only, you can only watch them more and learn more. There's so many truths. And so the truth of this is a mythology 2-parter. And so when we're talking about mythology, we're talking about lessons that we can learn as a greater world, as a greater society, instead of just the characters' emotions, which is the Monster of the Weeks. So in this one, we're talking about monsters begetting monsters. We're talking about progress at the expense of human life, which is too far. I think we can say, watching this, and those poor people at the Hanson's facility who did nothing wrong except for be sick, were treated like subhuman. And so X-Files likes to shine the light on these things and say, this is just truth. This is just the world. We're not going to draw moral conclusions for you. We're going to show you it, and then the characters get involved, and then the story plays out. But I think that, watching, we can definitely look at that and say, it's too far, it's too much. If we have citizens of this society that are being used as part of, crushed under the machine, but there's more to come. There's a 2-parter. So we'll be back next week with 731 with the follow-up. Please continue to watch, because there's so much more to talk about. We've only scratched the surface of this epic 2-parter.
Seriously. Just the surface.
Yes. Thank you again for tuning in to the lush basement office here, the KFiles. I'm Katie. You can find me on social medias at KMoles.
And I'm your co-host, Kryzzalia. You can find me at Kryzzalia on all social medias.
Yeah, and we're coming to you from Hollywood Redux. We have a lot of great content at Hollywood Redux. We do movies, we do nerd stuff, we have video games, sketches, shorts, only more content.
So just subscribe. Just follow along,
so
guys.
you're going to want to subscribe.
Just click that button and like us.
Just like us. Just like us. And what should we say? Oh, the truth is already here. That's what we always say. That's our tagline to wrap up the show. It's already here.
It's always here.
It's just waiting for you to dig it out with a shovel in your backyard of your mind.
Put some work on it, guys.
That's a metaphor.
See
Goodbye.
you guys.